Welcome. You're listening to How I Did That, a storytelling podcast. Let's jump into today's episode.
Hi, Anne. Thanks for
Hi,
joining.
Nika. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good.
So I wanted to have you here today to talk about your journey to becoming a pharmacist, because you want to go to pharmacy. You still want to go to pharmacy school? Just making sure.
Yes. I'm actually working on my application and studying for the PCAT, so I'm kind of there. It's really funny you said that because at work last week, I was working with a girl who just graduated pharmacy school last year. So she is a pharmacist, and she's like, "You should be a PA." I guess like the market's really saturated in Michigan actually. So I've had a lot of people tell me like, "You should be a nurse," or "You should go to med school." I'm like, "Well, I don't really want to do that." Yeah, that's funny. I'm still gonna go to pharmacy school though.
So let's talk about your journey.
Okay.
Tell us about your background. Maybe let's start with like where you grew up, in high school, college, and then how you knew you wanted to be a pharmacist. And then we'll get more into like what you did to prepare yourself for pharmacy school.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna start from the very beginning. I was born in Detroit, but I actually grew up in Port Harcourt, which is a city in south of Nigeria. So that's obviously my origin and heritage. My family's Nigerian, so I was born here, but my parents lived and still live in Nigeria. So that's where I grew up until I was 10. And then since I was an anchor baby, I was an American citizen.
Baby.
When like immigrants come here to have kids, so their kids will be citizens.
Smart.
It's funny because like it's this huge scandal. And I know like Trump has talked about it, but I literally yesterday just saw a video where they're like celebrating all these Russian women who are coming here to have kids, and like they think it's cute and cheeky, and I'm like, oh, but like when people of color do it, it's like, we're gonna revoke your citizenship.
How can your parents come here and have you if they don't have citizenship themselves?
My mom came here like on a visiting visa and just so happened to give birth to me. But now they're cracking down on that. Like I know a family friend, she was coming here on a visiting visa, but when they saw she was pregnant, they sent her back. Yeah, this was last year. They didn't want her to have a baby while she was here. But I mean, like 20 some years ago, it wasn't like that. Like it wasn't as strict. But besides that, so I grew up in Nigeria until I was 10, and moved here, or 10 or 11, moved here for school. So I did 5th grade here, and then middle school and high school, obviously. I went to an all-girls Catholic high school. And when I was there, I took AP chemistry my senior year. And that's when my my peak in chemistry kind of sparked my interest in chemistry, yes. And it's crazy because like I wasn't like the best student. I wasn't, honestly, like I actually struggled. Like it took me, longer to do my homework, and I would have to do study groups and things like that. But I don't know, something about it just really interested me. So coming into college, I was a chemical engineering major, which is how I met Neha in our classes, struggling in undergrad. And I was just really fascinated by chemical engineering, again, just with how much you could do in the field, kind of like pharmacy. And even with that, I was also like thinking maybe when I graduate, I could work in something pharmaceutical. And it's funny because my dad was a chemical engineer. He worked in petroleum. So yeah, I was like, oh, I could do that, follow in his footsteps. But so about junior year of college or sophomore year.
I was going to ask, did you because you had an interest in chemistry, like the first field that you were exposed to was chemical engineering because of your dad? So that's why you decided to do it?
I actually didn't know my dad was a chemical engineer until I was in college. I knew so when I was little, he worked in a refinery, like a petroleum company. And I knew that, but I just didn't know like that's what he studied in school. I don't know why I never made that connection. Until I was in college, and he was like, yeah, I studied chemical and petroleum engineering. And I'm like, duh, how else would you work in a petroleum company? But that's not what he does now. So he hasn't actively worked as an engineer since I was really little. That's why I don't really think about it that much. But he's in a completely different field now. But so no, it didn't inspire me. But I did think it was funny that like I was kind of gravitating towards that anyway. Yeah, so I did that for a little bit. It was fun until it wasn't fun. And just a whole bunch of I mean, I guess I could talk about this too because it is part of my journey. I was definitely, you know, as far as like being in the classes, I was definitely struggling with the content, specifically getting to the actual chemical engineering courses, not just like the prerequisites. So, and I guess like along with that, there was just so much other stuff going on in my life, like in my personal life. So I wasn't able to like just keep up with that. I did try. I would say I did not give up right away. You know, I was like, okay, you know, we don't do good in this class. You're going to try it again, take it again, get some help, all of that. But I think I got to a point where I was like, well, I don't want to keep struggling. Like, I just want to graduate. You know, it was fun. It was cool, whatever. But eventually I did switch my major to chemistry because, you know, being a chemical engineer, we had prerequisite courses, and a lot of them where, you know, we went up to Orgo 2. So I was already at a good spot for chemistry. So I switched and then basically just changed the layout of my next few years to complete a chemistry degree. And that was also pretty cool. Again, it wasn't like a breeze, but I will say I did enjoy it. Like, I liked some of my classes. Not analytical chem, I hated that class. I liked, one of my favorite electives I took was it was a drug design class, and I'm trying to remember the technical name. It was like bioorganic, something like that, whatever. Chem 5600. It was really fun to learn about like basically like the chemistry of drugs. And I figured that's something that I was going to learn in pharmacy anyway. Also, let me talk about like the pharmacy part. So when I switched my major to chemistry, I did that with the intention of being a pre-pharmacy student. And I guess my interest in pharmacy had always been there. Even when I was chemical engineering, I didn't really know, like, I wanted to work as an engineer, but I was still interested in pharmacy. Like, I had family members that were pharmacists and doctors, so just growing up around that. And I just have always been like paying attention to medicine. So like if I like had a headache or whatever, like I knew the difference between like NSAIDs and acetaminophen and things like that. Like I just kind of knew that. So I did have like a little interest in that. And even like when my uncle got sick, we would be not like in charge of taking care of him, but like we would help with him a lot. And I would, you know, always look at his meds, like what is he taking? I obviously don't know what any of it does, but I was still interested in that. So when I switched to chemistry, I was like, well, you know, I still want to go into a professional field. So I decided to go on a pre-pharmacy track, which if you know or you might not know, it does not actually require a degree. So you can apply to pharmacy school without a degree. But yeah, you can. You just need to do your prerequisites and take the PCAT. Some schools actually don't even require a PCAT anymore. But I was already like halfway through an engineering degree. I was like, you guys are going to give me a bachelor's, okay? So that's why I stuck with chemistry to, you know, actually graduate and get a degree and not just, you know, take the prereqs and go to pharmacy school. Because I already had so many credits at that point. I was like, I might as well get a degree. So yeah, that's basically where I'm at right now.
Bill, do you think that there are more students doing degrees to get into pharmacy just for backup in case they don't get in? Or do you think more students are just taking the prereqs to get in? And then if they don't get in, then they'll like complete their full degree?
Yeah, I think I see that more often. And obviously, like, I don't know everybody. And I wasn't really in that pre-pharmacy space early on. So even when I did switch my major, I wasn't like, you know, super close knit with these kids because they've all been taking the same classes or whatever. But I think most people don't really bother, especially if you apply and you get in. They don't really bother to stick around and get the bachelor's. But, you know, if it's taking you a little longer, then you might as well go and get a degree.
Or what if you like start out in a degree program and like your first 1 or 2 years you take all your prereqs and apply to pharmacy school like in that year as soon as you have the prereqs done, and if you don't get in then you just finish with the degree.
Yeah. I think some people do that as well. But I know, like, just talking to some people in pharmacy school, like, and I think this is the same for med school or probably any type of professional school. When you get there, you realize just how diverse it is and how, like, you have so many people coming from different paths. Like, you might have people who, you know, have like graduated with something else and have been working for like 20 years and decided randomly like, oh, now I want to be a doctor. So like everyone's not going to be like fresh out of undergrad or, you know, a second year or a third year undergrad per se with pharmacy. But there are a lot of people who are like 20, 19 or however old you are when you finish your prereqs and applying to pharmacy school. Yeah.
Wow.
I basically just tailored my classes to fit the prerequisite courses that some colleges require.
What are those prereqs?
Okay, so they are different for each school, but the main ones obviously are your chemistries, biologies, organics, English. Most schools require at least 2 semesters of a language. Let me see, some type of like sociology or psychology, like a social science. I'm trying to think about like the common ones. Mm-hmm. A speech for some classes, some form of like a speech class. And like higher biology classes like micro cell genetics. And I think that's the part where, for me, I found that it differs as far as the schools I'm interested in, because some people require microbiology and some people don't, and some people want genetics and some people don't. And I'm like, if you want genetics, then you don't want me because I'm not taking it. I just didn't want to do it. But yeah, so I think some of those higher up bio classes are different based on the school.
When you were taking the courses in your chemistry major, can you talk a bit about the course curriculum for that? As a freshman going into like a chemistry degree, or at least a freshman going into like whatever degree, even my degree, I was always like, I wonder, like, I wish I could talk to someone who's graduated. I wish they could tell me like what the coursework was like over the 4 years. I don't really have any connections. I feel like that would help students out.
Definitely, that's really real. And honestly, even when I was switching I was really overwhelmed because I just kind of felt like, okay, well, I've been here. Honestly, I don't remember what semester it was that I switched my major, but I just remember feeling like, okay, I've done 2 or 3 years of this, and now I felt like I was starting over because I was looking at what I had taken and what I had left to complete the degree, and it was just really daunting. And I do wish like I had someone to talk to, because then going in and doing it, I realized, okay, like it's not that bad. Right. But
the other thing that helps is when like knowing somebody who graduated is what teachers to take. If there's more than one teacher like teaching a certain course, you can kind of get a feel for like which teachers are better, which ones not. Another thing is knowing which courses are harder and which ones you're going to have more of a struggle in and which ones are not. Because sometimes, like, if you don't know anybody in the class, then you don't really know, like, am I just really struggling with this, or is this actually supposed to be one of the harder classes in the major? And the other thing is, like, not knowing, like, not knowing what resources you can use, what's available, right, until you talk to someone, and then not knowing, like how to structure your schedule, basically, because maybe there are some easier classes you can put with the harder ones to balance it out. But then you like figure these things out later and you're like, oh, I wish I
knew earlier. I definitely did struggle with that. And I'm shout out to Samia, because I would always ask her questions, because I'm like, I don't know anyone else in this major, and Sam had taken some of the classes, so I'd ask her about like certain teachers or certain classes. But definitely, like, if you're coming into college straight up, or if you're changing your major or whatever the new environment is going to be, definitely try to find resources, because it's going to help you, like Neha said, with knowing what classes are easier or harder, what teachers to take, things like that. I think for me, like, or I guess for the degree, obviously you start off with like general chemistry, whatever that is. So at our school, we had like the basic gen chem, and then there was like intro to chem. I had tested into the basic gen chem. That was one of my first classes of my first semester, so I was very excited. And I was just like, I'm gonna be friends with everybody. Like, let's all form a little clique and have a group chat name that's so geeky. But yeah, that was really fun. So that's kind of like where I started, and then I took organic the semester after, organic 1 and then organic 2, and then I took analytical chemistry and then inorganic chemistry, which honestly, from like the outside looking in, seemed just like gen chem, and I thought it was going to be fun and easy, and it wasn't. And then after inorganic, I took physical chem. So physical chem for me was weird because I didn't take physical chem 1. I took physical chem 2 and got like exempt from taking 1. And we took physical chem 2 together. Yeah. It was just weird, but I had to take the lab for physical chem 1. Oh yeah, the labs. There's lots of labs. Gen Chem had a lab, Orgo had a lab, Orgo 2 had a lab, Analytical had a lab. I think inorganic chemistry was the only one that didn't have a lab. Physical chem had a lab, and I think after physical chem, I might be getting confused. I took so many classes.
Physical chemistry, which is also called quantum mechanics.
I think the only lab I took was for PChem 1. And I took that the semester after we took PChem 2. So I was trying to remember, like, what are the similarities? And the physical chem lab was very hands-on. Like, it was like 6 hours long. And we would be, like, we met every other week. And I think it was 6 hours. It was really long, however long it was. Definitely hands-on, like, experiment-wise. But I was also still trying to tie things back to physical chem 2. And there were like certain things that could have helped, but I don't think it was big enough of a difference that, like, I don't think we missed anything basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it just those like 5 or 6 chemistry courses that you took, and the rest were electives or biology courses?
Yeah, so it was basically that, inorganic, and then you had the electives. So I did biochem. I think biochem was actually a requirement. So the survey of biochem. And then you had a few like 5,000 level courses to pick from, 5,000 and 6,000 courses for electives. And yeah, I think I did 2 of those.
Are 5,000, 6,000, those are graduate level?
Yeah. So there were some graduate students. Like, for example, so the class I was speaking about, it was not Chem 5600. I misspoke earlier. It was Chem 6270, Advanced Bioorganic Chemistry and Drug Design. So there were a lot of grad students in that class. And being in that class, to me, was like culture shock. Because one, I barely knew anyone. Half of the students were grad students. The first week, I was like, what is this man saying? I literally did not know what he was talking about. So like, I felt like I really had to like go in. Like, I remember going back and like rewatching lectures from day 1 and like catching up, and I was Googling a lot of things that I didn't know like what they were, just so I can piece things together, because there were a lot of concepts he was talking about, and I was like, this isn't even like, because he was talking about like drug assays, and I was like, I can't even envision that in my mind. So I think for that class, I did have to put in like a lot more work than I was used to. But like I said, being pre-pharm, the content of the course was interesting to me, so I like stuck around for it. We had like a semester-long project where we were given we were basically like we were given a like a disease or a sickness or something, and we had to come up with like a plan to basically come up with a drug for it. So like literally starting from the beginning to clinical trials, testing, assays, all of that stuff. Like we had to basically at different points of the semester reach a certain, like a new level of the project. So that also was really cool.
And then what else did you take as electives or any other? Not the like American history or those electives, but like.
Oh yeah. Like obviously biology, physics. I did physics 1, physics 2, both of those with labs. Calculus. I think for chemistry, you're only required to go up to maybe Calc 2 or Calc 3, but I did differential equations. Okay. But I did that while I was still an engineering major. And then I did Bio 1 or whatever it's called, Bio 1510.
Yeah, original biology.
Yeah. And then I did that, and I did microbiology and anatomy and physiology.
Okay. What activities did you get involved in your undergrad degree that you think will help you in pharmacy school? Or even if not, like, what things did you get involved in?
So I did a lot in undergrad, most of which contributed to me just being overwhelmed all the time. And I know you were probably like, this girl is just all over the place. So basically when I applied to Wayne, when I got into Wayne, I got an email from somebody in the engineering department like, hey, do you want to do this program? And at the time it was called LSAMP. And I was like,
what?
LSAMP. It was like Louis Stokes something. I'm probably saying it wrong.
Oh, it's like the research program was called LSAMP.
Yeah, it was a research program. So basically, the first year, so before we even started undergrad, that summer, we went to Wayne and we were taking classes. And I say that with air quotes because it was like classes that I already took. It was like math, English, gym. Like it's just random, but like I get it. It was meant to be like a bridge program, which is nice. Like, you know, some people might not have like, you know, might not be ready to be thrown into a calculus class or whatever. The English is definitely helping a lot because I know like us engineers, we're not well versed in that area, so we definitely learned like how to write and things like that. So it was cool. But basically, upon completing that program, our first year, we were going to be put into a lab the following summer and be paid for that. So that's how I got into our batteries lab. And I was there for a couple of years and it was really fun. I learned so much. I was literally thinking about that today. I was like, I should email them and just say hi or something. Like I was thinking about it today. I had got really busy, obviously, with school and, you know, trying to balance these classes. And then I got hired at DTE. But I learned a lot, obviously, procedures of like being in the lab and just the work we were doing. It was a lot of fun.
And it was all chemistry related because they were looking electrolytes and stuff, right?
Exactly. So, and I so many times I wanted to go back. I actually got into the lab because of LSAMP, but then I met my friend Greg there. Greg was telling me how he was going back to the lab even after he graduated to help them out. I was like, oh, that's cool. And I like had started to think about it. I'm like, girl, you know you don't have time for that. Yeah, so that was one of the things I did afterwards. So that summer, we worked in the lab and we had to present our research or whatever we had worked on up until that point. And we got a stipend for that. So after that summer, most of the people who were in there with me left. Like all of them actually, except me. But I stayed in the lab and kept working with them and just like learning about, we would switch projects sometimes or, you know, get moved around. I think I wouldn't say it's like helping me on my pharmacy journey, but it was definitely something that was helpful just to my college career as a whole and, you know, the skills that I have and being well-rounded and all of that. Besides that, I did a lot of like student organizations, like, you know, you mentioned Poise earlier, which is the fashion organization. I was a part of that. And basically it was started by my friend Taylor. Shout out to Taylor. And I remember when it was literally just like an idea she had and she was talking about it. And then watching that go from an idea to, you know, 3 years of work and having an annual fashion show and supporting local charities. So that was really cool to be a part of. I also was a part of the Wayne African Student Society, which was pretty cool. Had a lot of fun memories there. We would just all kind of hang out and talk about issues like going on in our community, or plan outings, or just like have a game night, just something to kind of cool off from school. Oh, and I did like the Black Student Union as well. So those are like the main organizations I was a part of. I was a part of NSBE, which is the National Society for Black Engineers. Even after I switched my major, I still stayed in NSBE because there's a lot of opportunities there, and it was also fun to do. And the last year I was in NSBE, the convention was in Detroit, so that was really cool because I never got to go to any of the conventions. I was not paying for a flight.
Can you explain a bit more about your internship with DTE?
Yes. Okay. So.
Well, you were in chemical engineering, right? Because it's a energy plant.
So it was my third year, I believe. This was right. So yeah. So I did switch my major at the end of my third year. So this was right before I switched my major, but I was looking for an internship, and a lot of students apply to DTE as a summer student. They have a program for that, or as a co-op. So I applied as a summer student, and luckily, so Greg also worked in DTE, and he was leaving his position. So when I sent my application in, a lot of times if you know people, this is like a really good tip. Like if you know people in the company, just throw it out there, like see, who can help you out. I had an aunt who worked there, and she was like, well, why didn't you tell me? Like I could have put in a good word for you. And I was just kind of like, well, I just wanted to see if I could, like, when you're like, I just wanted to see if I can get it on my own. But, I had talked to Greg about it, and he was leaving his position. So he told his boss, like, hey, check out this application. And she was like, oh yeah. So I did an interview with her, and I got the position. I got to be able to do to take over his part, which is nice in a way because at least I knew the person who was there before me, so I could ask questions and things like that. So I was there for the summer. I worked in gas transmission and storage operations. And basically, if you don't know, if you're listening to this, DTE is the company that provides energy to our area in like southeastern Metro Detroit area. So working like in the gas, there's the gas and the electric side of DTE. So I worked in the gas side, and it was pretty cool. Like there were a lot of times where I actually got to go out to the gas plants, being in the field with my boss. Obviously, like that was not the direct field I was studying in. So there was like a bit of a learning curve, but not too much. Like some things were pretty familiar. But the actual job I was doing as an intern or summer student was pretty like, not clerical, but a lot of reports. So I would get data on basically how each field, there were different sites for the gas plants. So I would get data on how each of the sites were performing weekly, monthly. And basically my job was to compile all of this data into Excel documents and send them out to our team. So I would have a weekly one that I would send out on Mondays. I'd have a monthly one, and basically some of them would be running lists. So like you could see what happened last week and things like that. And then also I would do reports for each site as well. So I would do like a combined thing for all the sites and then reports per site. So that was really cool. I learned a lot in that as well. And just as far as like being an employee in the corporate world, because before that I worked at CVS as a pharmacy technician, which, is totally different from working in a company like DTE. And that was also really fun too, because summer students or summer interns, we would kind of link up with all the other summer interns from all the other bigger companies in Detroit. So like they would put on these little events for us to hang out. So that was cool. Obviously the pay was good, especially for me at that time, being a poor college student. And I wish I knew a lot more about money management now, or money management then that I do now, because I definitely spent most of my paychecks traveling. I was like everywhere. I was just going everywhere. My boss was like, I'd be like, hey, like I'm not gonna be here on Friday. May or may not be here on Monday. She's like, you sure do go a lot of places. So I worked there for the summer, and I did actually really like the job I was doing because I think it was the perfect amount of work. Like, it wasn't overbearing, but it wasn't like I just was sitting there doing nothing. Like, I remember I had some friends who were working at other companies, and they're like, I just sit there all day and I do nothing. But like, I actually had, a decent amount of work. And so after the summer, my boss wanted to keep me on for the rest of the year. So I transitioned from a summer intern to a co-op, and that's basically just how I continued working there. But unfortunately, I stopped working there, so I started working there in May or June, like the beginning of summer, and then I worked there throughout the end of the year, and then January of the following year. At the end of January, I left because school was just getting to be a lot, and I would come in the morning, leave to go to class, then come back, and it was just a lot. It was just doing a lot. I would basically be trying to find hours in between classes to go to work, and thankfully, obviously, DTE is like not down the street, but it's not far. But it was just, it just wasn't ideal. So after that, I was not working for the following year, and then after that, I went back to CVS. Because at that point, I had started my pre-pharmacy track. So I was like, well, why not go back to working at a pharmacy? Mm-hmm. And then I also wanted to get like certified as a pharmacy technician and things like that. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to go back to working at the pharmacy.
Can you talk a bit more about your experience with working at the pharmacy and being certified in pharmacy tech? Like, what is that? Do you think that students pursuing pre-pharm should do that?
Okay, yes. So I started working as a pharmacy technician while I was still an engineering major. Like I said, I was doing engineering, but I still kind of had interest in pharmacy. And I was there for a couple of months in the beginning. So this was like 2017, I think. I was there for a couple of months, and then I had surgery. So I left on a leave. And I thought I was only going to be gone for 2 weeks to recover from surgery. But then there was like so much miscommunication between the hospital and corporate, because you need like paperwork from the doctor saying you're good to go back to work. So it was just taking forever. Like, it took months before I could get reapproved. And at that point I was like, okay, whatever. Clearly I'm not coming back to work. So thankfully the following summer I got hired at DTE. So when I came back to CVS, I then I took the exam to be a certified pharmacy technician. So basically, to be a pharmacy technician, at least for CVS, you just need like a high school diploma. Like, it's nothing super crazy, but they do require you within a year to become certified. So you have a year to take the exam, excuse me, and basically it's like things you're supposed to pick up on the job. But personally, I think that there's a lot more studying that goes into it, because if you're not, like, for example, if you were coming in with an engineering background and you haven't taken any type of pharmacy course, or you're not even like familiar with pharmacy, I think it would be a little harder to just take the exam without studying. And obviously they do encourage you to study. There's a study guide. And specifically too with knowing the brand name and generic name for drugs. It's not a big part of the exam, but it is on there. And I know for a fact, like, while I'm at work every day, my pharmacist is not saying like, hey, you need to know that this generic name is this, or like ibuprofen is Motrin. Like, some things you'll pick up on. The easy stuff you'll pick up on, but some of the hardest stuff you're not going to know. So I did study that a little bit, and I know that's something I'm going to have to know at pharmacy school anyway. And a lot of it, too, is just like procedure stuff, just knowing how the job goes, privacy, obviously working with patients, HIPAA and things like that. So, yeah, I think I guess what it means to be certified is just basically they want to test to see if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. But what do you get to do with that technician certification that you can't do otherwise?
Okay, so at CVS, if you don't have that technician certification within a year, you can no longer work there. So, I think they give you a little grace period of if your 1 year runs out, but you are taking the test, they're not going to fire you. But if you don't pass the test or you don't plan on taking the test, then obviously you can no longer work there. But the certification allows you to have more job options. So I know I was talking to some people at the hospital because I wanted to get a job at the hospital, but you need to be certified for the hospital like right off the bat. So it's just basically like for better job opportunities, or just job opportunities period, because I think CVS, if I'm not mistaken, might be one of the few places that will hire you and then train you and then let you get the certification. I think other pharmacies, you might need to already have that. Or I think Walgreens might do that. I'm not sure. But so you need that certification to be able to work, basically.
I see.
And then that's just like a regular, like right now I have I'm a certified pharmacy technician, but for the state of Michigan. But I'm going to take the test that's going to certify me for like the whole nation.
Oh, so is it like that at all the pharmacies? You do need to get that certification at some point?
Yes.
Okay. And so for students who are going to pharmacy school but who haven't worked in a pharmacy setting before, they might not know that you need to take this to have better job opportunities once you graduate from pharmacy school?
Well, so it's not basically for pharmacy school, it's just as a technician in general. So even if you weren't a pharmacy student, like a lot of the other techs that work with me either are not in school or are not going to school for pharmacy, but they're going to need to take the certification anyways just to be able to be allowed to work legally. I know in the past it wasn't a requirement legally, but now it is. But I would say if you're a pre-pharm student, it helps one to be in the area, be familiar with the job. Working in retail for me as a tech made me realize that I don't want to be a retail pharmacist. But that's when we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But I think like as a pre-pharm student, you definitely should, and it's not a requirement, but I think it's one of those things that like everyone does. I'm trying to like find a comparison to like, okay, for example, like as an engineer, like most kids have internships because it's good for your resume when you apply for a job, when you graduate. So it's kind of like that, but it's not, I do not believe that it's actually a requirement.
Were those your two main experiences with jobs, was like CVS and DTE?
Yeah, besides like little on-campus jobs, like I worked the front desk at a dorm for a couple of years. I worked at the university call center. They sit us in a room and make us call alumni and ask them to donate money. So like if they see that like you're losing someone, or if they see that you're about to get some money, they would like be giving you signals. And I'm like, this is so much pressure.
Wait, so they would listen in on the calls, but like you would be in a different room?
No, we were all in the same room.
Oh.
And it was just rows of desks, and then the managers were in the front and they had their own desk. I would always just try to get the one computer in the corner and like put my head down and just try to get through it.
It's so awkward. Wow. After you stopped working, or you're still working at CVS, right?
I am.
So then once you graduated, did you graduate with me? Last May?
I graduated this May.
You graduated in May, but that was in the middle of a pandemic.
Exactly.
But I mean, at least it's not like you're like in engineering or something and you're looking for a job right away, because you're writing your PCAT hoping to apply to pharmacy school, right? So it's not as bad because you're not actively searching, I guess, for a new job. Now you're just like hoping to apply soon.
Yeah, so when I graduated, I did have some people ask like, well, are you just gonna, apply to a chemical company? And I was like, well, that's a good, obviously I would have the degree for that, and that's a good idea. But I think I just really wanted this next year to just be like very less stressful. And I really acknowledge that like the privilege that I have to even be able to be like, well, I graduated and I'm not actively looking for a job, even though I do have a job, I'm working, but just to be able to decline job opportunities. I had a couple of people send me stuff like, hey, apply for this, and I'm like I'd rather not. I have this gap year and I just want to send out my applications and hopefully hear back, and just kind of wait until I start in the fall. And that's another thing too, like I don't want to get into a company and then be like, oh, sorry, I'm leaving. Like, God willing, I get accepted and everything, have to leave in August next year. So And again, doing 5 years of undergrad, like I just need a break. So I do acknowledge the privilege in that, but I was not looking for anything right after. I've been working in CVS the whole time. So even when I was in school, I was working during the pandemic. I'm still working right now.
When you are, now that you're applying or you're waiting to write your PCAT, when do you plan to write it? And is it kind of like the MCAT? Like how long is it? What classes do you think you need for it? Are there like, I know the Princeton Review and other Kaplan Review and stuff, they prepare you for the MCAT. Are there resources like that for you?
Definitely. So there's a Kaplan one. I don't think I've come across Princeton Review for PCAT, but there's a really good resource that everyone has recommended to me, Dr. Collins, and he actually I ordered it, not just, but I got it in a couple weeks ago, and it's literally this giant box of brown envelopes with like worksheets in it, but I heard it's really helpful. There's that, there's the apps, and obviously like YouTube videos and stuff like that.
So is it more like self-directed studying that you're doing rather than following a course?
Right now, yes. So for me, I wanted to at least start off self. So most people who are applying this cycle have probably already taken their PCAT. I'm not gonna say that I'm late, but like I know like early decision applications are actually due this month. But I'm not applying early decision, so I'm just kind of taking my time with it. Originally wanted to take it in October, and I still might, but I might take it in January again, which is like, dang girl, you're pushing it. But I want to be comfortable. Like I want to be like, you know, especially just because I don't have that much time anymore to keep retaking it. I want to know, you know, I take it once, have a good score. My application is where I want it to be, so I can send all of that in. So, I mean, applications don't close until, I know like this year they closed in July. I'm going to assume it's the same. So I'm not going to beat myself up for timing, basically. I don't know if this is good advice for anyone else out there listening. Talk to other people, but this is just what I'm doing for me. Because it's been, personally, like I just haven't been able to get where I wanted to get. So after I graduated in May, I still had to take 2 classes over the summer. So all my focus had not been just on the PCAT. And you know, there are people who like can take the PCAT in the middle of a semester and be fine. I'm not one of those people. Or maybe I'm like overthinking it, but I do like want to just make out time to where I'm only studying that. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. The sections are, there's a critical thinking section, there's like the chemistry section, the biology section, and then just like, there's a writing section, which is like scored separately from your composite score. And then like obviously math and things like that.
When you apply to pharmacy school, are you going to be applying all over the United States and Canada and other countries, or I don't know, like where do you want to go?
Girl, I want to come to Canada. Okay, let me come to Canada. I saw Toronto has a pharmacy school. Hey guys, hey friends.
I'm sure your tuition would be less.
Really?
The exchange rate is like a lot less, like a third less. So you'd only be paying 2/3 of the price. But I don't know if you would get more as international. But I don't know if you would be. So you might end up actually paying less than if you went to an out-of-state school in Michigan or something like out of Michigan. I don't know.
Toronto is so fun. Like I would love to live there.
It's really fun. You should apply just to see how it's gonna be.
I'm gonna do it maybe. I'm gonna do it. I'm also applying to University of Toledo, and just so many random obscure schools that I just put on the PCAT. I'm like, this looks like it's in a cool city. Let's see what happens. Also, terrible life advice. Please do research on where you're going. Obviously, like I say that, but I have a PDF of every pharmacy school in the United States. So that's like where I actually picked the schools from. I didn't just randomly go and be like, hey. But it's just too many to name. Well, there's the PharmCast. So like it's that common application.
Oh, but then doesn't each school require its own specific essays on top of that? Like some schools do.
Some schools do, yeah. But I am like trying to limit. So I think originally when I signed up for the PCAT, I put down like a whole bunch of schools to send my score to. But now as I'm working on the application, I'm like, we're gonna do like 5.
What advice would you give to an incoming freshman who wants to become a pharmacist?
Okay, I would say ask questions. And I think for me, it's like an advice that I give people that I actually do follow. Like definitely ask questions, try to find resources. Being in that the research program the summer before helped me a lot as far as like when I came on campus. One, I was already familiar with campus because I like already did classes there, but I already knew people, so I knew who to ask. But just in my case, you know, I was originally on the engineering track, but definitely try to find people in your field, ask questions, talk to professors, talk to older students in your course field, you know, like TAs, peer mentors, literally anybody. You know, like just don't be afraid, because people, you know, sometimes some people might be standoffish or stuck up, but a lot of people more often than not are willing to help. And one thing that I wish I did better was just forming a stronger relationship with your professors. I was one of those students that like, I just took the class and I left, you know. For some classes, I would be in office hours and like, you know, being friends with them, but I wouldn't really keep up with them after the semester, which is like hard for me now as I'm doing applications. I'm like, well, who do I ask for a letter of recommendation? Because, you know, I don't even trust that like if I ask this person, they're going to have strong enough words to say about me because we weren't that close. So definitely keep that in the back of your mind. And I'm not saying like form a relationship with professors just because you need a letter of recommendation. Obviously, it's going to help you in the class. Some of them are just really cool people. And also, you might need a letter of recommendation from somebody one day. And another thing I will say, which kind of pertains to my journey, is don't be afraid of failure. I think I struggle with that a lot. And you know, it's crazy being in an environment like a university where everybody is like, oh yeah, 4 years in and out. And which is the whole part of being, you know, a non-conventional student. I did 5 years, and which is actually becoming the new norm. But don't be afraid of failure. Like if you start off in one course and you realize like maybe this is not working out for me at this moment, or it's just not for me at all, the fear in starting over, I get it. Like it's really a lot. It's very overwhelming, but you're gonna have to do it anyway. If you fail a class, like it's definitely unfortunate, but like just don't let any of that bring you down. Like you just have to keep going. Remember your goal. Remember what it is that you're trying to accomplish. And I say this because I feel like in college, yeah, people like, you know, people who, you know, might get off their track, but especially being in STEM, it seems like everyone is perfect. Like, you know, like you're surrounding yourself, you're in classes with these you might think are smarter than you, who you might think have it all figured out. And you're like, this girl finished her engineering degree in 3 years. Like, what the heck? Do you have 2 brains? Like, you might, you know, just start feeling down. But like, just remember, like, you are on your own path. Like, you have your own journey and you're on that path for a reason. So if you fail, just kind of remind yourself that like, yeah, it's unfortunate, but this is part of the lesson that I need to learn to get to where I need to be. So that's pretty much my advice. Like, and another thing I would say too is like, explore your interests. So like I said, I did all these random things in college, which may seem random. You know, being in research and being in an organization about fashion and traveling and trying to be like an Insta blogger and all these random things. But I will say, like, one, don't overwhelm yourself. So if you are trying to put your hands into every little org and every little thing, still remember you're at school to be at school. But I will say, don't be at school and not try out any other things that college has to offer. Like, there's so much out there, you know. If it's like a faith-based organization, or if you like cooking, you might find a cooking club. Our school had a freaking squirrel watching club, and I wanted to join them, but I don't really know when they met, okay?
We have a Quidditch club, too.
We have a Quidditch club. Like, if you want to watch squirrels in your lunch break, like, do that. If you like art or photography, like, just try to find something that kind of gives you balance between schoolwork and social life, so like you can meet people, but also just see what else your school has to offer.
Very well said. I think that's really all I had. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I think listening to your journey will definitely help somebody who's on the same path.
Hopefully, yeah. And thank you for having me and, allowing me to share my story, because I think for a while I just kind of felt alone. But it's very common, and I think it's good too if you're an incoming freshman, just knowing off the bat that like this does happen. You might be a chemical engineer turned chemistry major who was applying to pharmacy school after 5 years person, and it's okay. So thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into today's episode, and we'll see you next time.